Hello, I'm Rebecca the Maths Lady, here to help you become an expert primary maths teacher so that all your children become fluent and confident and creative with their maths and that you love your maths teaching. This is the 5th video on teaching maths to children in English Year 1, which is our second formal year of maths education, which they start when they're 5 years old. And we are going to focus today on the number line up to 100. So a big mistake teachers make is just to introduce the number line and assume it makes sense to children and that it's something that they can access. It is for some children and it's not for others. It's a big barrier. So we need to go through it slowly, step by step. They may have done a lot of work on reading and writing digits last year, but they could well have forgotten it all because they are that young. So we're going to go right back to basics. And in this episode, we will cover writing digits, writing 2-digit numbers, reading 2-digit numbers, ordering 2-digit numbers, judging the position of numbers on the number line. And we'll do lots of maths with the number line. And then we'll do some work on listening to the maths of children with the number line. So let's get started with writing digits. Well, the first thing to spot here is that while most maths is logical, writing digits and understanding how to construct them is not at all logical. Just because you know how to do the digit number 1 and the digit number 2, that doesn't mean you'll be able to do the digit number 3 because there's no logic as to what shape that digit's going to be. So we need lots of drill and practice and chant and poems and songs and all those kinds of stuff that help children rote learn. So the resources that schools love and cherish for this include the Communication for All number formation rhyme cards, which they recommend all the time. These are great. You can download these free off the internet. And the other one they're loving at the minute is the Number Blocks song, Let's All Draw Numbers, which is available on YouTube for free. So you can find that and have some fun with that too. Most important thing, make sure you coordinate with the other teachers in your school. Find out what the children did last year and build from that. And make sure you share your strategies with teachers further up the school so that they're going to consolidate them and do them in the same way. Then, once they've got past those first 10 digits, it all becomes fun, which is what maths is, because it's easy, it's logical. You can suddenly get the next 90 numbers if you only learn some really simple rules, which is that the first digit tells you how many 10s you've got, and the second digit tells you how many 1s you've got. So if you've got 4 10s and 2 1s, there we go. That number is going to be 42. But there's one specific thing that children are likely to struggle with, even if they get the logic that you've just shared with them. And that is that young children often have serious problems with their left and their right and their order of reading things. So a child might totally understand that the first digit is the number of 10s and the second is the number of 1s, but they simply may not know which the first digit is because they don't know their left from their right. And that causes all sorts of confusion and barriers to learning for children at this stage. So what can we do about it? Well, there are 3 things. The first is that we can work on their understanding of left and right. I created a really short video on this in my course for 4-year-olds, and there's a link to that there. It's also worth thinking about doing some work on motor sensory integration if some of your children are having trouble with dyspraxia and coordination, and there's a link to that video now. So you can do some work on left and right. But there's another thing that's really useful to help children with this, and that is arrow cards. Here's a pack of arrow cards. If we just see what they are, there's all your 1s are on green, all your 10s are on yellow, and you have got the hundreds on red for the future. But if we just look at these numbers up to 100, if we look at that number 42, the only way you can copy that number with arrow cards is like this, if you build the number with arrow cards, if you try to do it the other way round, it just doesn't work because of these arrows. You've got to line things up correctly. So then a child who's struggling with their left and right can take those apart and deeply understand that that number there is 4 tens, 40, and a number 2. So arrow cards are really, really useful in year 1 for supporting the children who are struggling with this issue. So tip number 1 was practice left and right. Tip number 2 was use arrow cards. And tip number 3 is that you need to be really sensitive and observant and puzzle out which children have this issue and make sure that those individual children are getting the intervention and the support they need to become confident with this. It doesn't matter if they use arrow cards all year with you, if you get them managing without them by the end of the year. And if you don't manage that, then obviously their next teacher needs to know that they still need those arrow cards. And then everything's fine. So the next skill they need is to be able to read 2-digit numbers. You want to be able to show them a flashcard of a number and for them to be able to say it and show it with the big bead frame. If they can do that, you're fine, you're away. Some children may still need to use their arrow cards to build that number so they can then take it apart, and that will be the interim step they need to be able to doing what you want them to do. You may need to drill them on their names of numbers. You may want to chant up and down in the tens so they really become confident in 6 tens being 60. And then the next skill children need is to be able to order numbers. You may have already started, they may have attempted tasks in the previous year where they thread beads for the numbers up to 20. It's a lovely introduction to this. But then you want to work on some larger numbers, initially with sets of larger numbers, maybe the numbers from 50 to 70, and ask children to put them in order. And then the next step is to give them numbers that don't all go in order. So you might give them 23 and 76 and 54 and maybe 10 numbers like that, and ask them to put them in order, even though not every single number is there. And of course it's lovely to get them to work in groups so they're arguing with each other and verbalising their thinking and having to fight for what they believe is right. And some of them may need arrow cards to help them be really confident in what they're doing. And that's all fine. And of course, at around about this stage, you will actually want to introduce your number line to 100, and you might have a paper one on the wall, you might have it on your interactive whiteboard, but the children want to have some exposure to it, and they may want to construct a complete number line to 100 themselves. I tend to use this. This is a meter rule, but I picked this one for working with children of this age group because the numbers are in the gaps, which works really well for children of this age who are still working with numbers as being whole objects. They're seeing that's the number 1, that's the number 2, and so on. And it also shows the groups of 10 centimetres. Around about age 7, we'll swap the children over onto rulers where the numbers are on the lines, as adult rulers are. It's quite a major shift to seeing numbers as relating to scales that are things are measured by rather than as individual objects. It's discrete number versus continuous number if you want the technical vocabulary for it. We're in the world of discrete number, so this is quite a nice number line to play around with. And of course we can make the links between this number line and the big bead bar, just so they're really clear they are doing the same maths. So next we want children to be able to judge the position of numbers on the number line. And here's an exercise for this. I've simply got a meter stick and I've put 1 at the beginning and 100 at the end to make it look like this stick, only all the other numbers are missing. And the challenge we're then going to give children So I'm going to give them a number. Here I've got the number 20. They can talk with their talk partner. Where is it going to go? Can have a competition or a game to see if anyone can actually manage to get it on the stick where it belongs, so that when we put the meter rule up against it, your post-it note actually overlaps where that number 20 is. Big challenge. They don't have to get this right. Whoever gets closest can be the winner. Lots of fun, and you can have lots of kids coming to notice that 50 is pretty much in the middle and is the number below 50 or above 50 in thinking about where they position it. Just really, really powerful work that's going to make them think in depth about their number line and come to understand it. So what maths can we do with the number line? Well, you can count up and down in ones. You can ask children to point to any number that you name, or show them with digit cards, or show them on the bead bar. And as you do this, you can check for the common mistakes. Are they hearing 14 and 40 clearly, differently? Do they understand what you're saying? 17, 70, and so on. You can do 1 or 2 more or less than any number. And you can count with the children in 2s, which are all white, and in 5s, and in 10s. Note, it's all the same exercises that we did with the big bead bar. You're covering the Year 1 curriculum twice already, and we'll be doing it again in the next 2 episodes. So children will have covered the core concepts of number on the Year 1 curriculum 4 times with different apparatus. And finally, this is the bit of the video where we talk about listening to children to really hear what maths is going on in their heads, rather than listening for the maths you're expecting to hear. And we're just going to recap the 3 strategies that we've used in the last 3 videos and apply them to the number line. So those 3 strategies were, and another one, reification, and child-led questions. So when we're working on 1 or 2 more or less than any number, we can notate what we're doing as additions and subtractions. If we are doing 1 more than 41, then the notation we need is 41 add 1 equals, and we can find our answer and fill it in on our whiteboard. And similarly, for 1 or 2 less than, we can notate that as subtraction. And having done that, can children come up with their own questions that start with any number that you or they choose? So maybe we've done 52 today. We want additions and subtractions that start at 52. What can they come up with? And they're going to need to show you that they've got the right answer on the number line. So child-led questions, what questions can they write? And another one, and another one, and another one. How far can they go? How far can we stretch them? What are they capable of? And finally, reification is about taking one of those calculations that they've come up with and making a story about it that makes sense in the world of their imagination. So if they've come up with 51 add 3 equals 54, what might that be about? Who can come up with the most interesting story? And then you've got such a powerful maths lesson, one to really show off to people who come into your classroom to observe you. But it only really works if we've built up the foundations of the number line slowly and carefully, so that every child is with us at this really powerful, impressive stage of maths they're all going to love. So you may want to use what we've learned here just to work around and enhance the lesson by lesson scheme of work you've been given. But if you're feeling sufficiently confident that you could write your own scheme, there's a planning guide to help you do that. It's all for free in the Expert Primary Maths Teacher Planning Facebook group. Please do consider sharing this video to any groups you're in or with your colleagues in your classroom. And even better still, if you know someone who could donate so that we can do these videos better, that would be awesome. I got an inquiry this week from someone who wanted to make a video with me about continuous provision for maths in year 1, but just couldn't afford to do it because I couldn't get there and back in a day and do all that work because it was too far away. If you'd like to create a collaborative video about year 1 maths teaching, if there's something that you're passionate about that you'd like to share, please do get in touch. And if I can get to you, I will. So for now, go and love your maths teaching. I'll be back with you next week. I'm publishing videos every Thursday at 3 o'clock. The next one is on the number square, and then we'll be moving on to one of my favourite topics, which is doing number in year 1 with individual objects, and you'll be meeting my penguins. Bye for now.